Every Pokemon card has artwork with that Pokemon in it, and every trainer card pictures the relevant object, character, or place. But some cards feature several Pokemon, or Pokemon in trainer cards, or even in energy cards. Isn't that cool? Don't you want to see all of them? Well, you're in luck because I'm gonna find all of them. Let's start at the beginning with base set. The creature cards were just focused on the namesake Pokemon for a while, so unless we count real animals, we won't be seeing any of those for a while. Instead, we get lots of appearances in the form of trainer cards. First up is Clefairy Doll, which isn't really a Pokemon, but I'm counting references as cameos too. Those of you familiar with the video games might be wondering why it isn't called Pokédoll, which is what the card is based on. This is because it's using the English equivalent of the Japanese name rather than what the item is actually called in the English games. The game item lets you instantly escape any wild battle, and the card has a similar effect, being played as a Pokemon but lacking any attacks or abilities and not giving up a prize card if it's knocked out or discarded. Next are Scoop Up and Gust of Wind, with the Weedle getting blasted in and out of battle. Scoop Up lets you return a basic Pokemon to your hand, and Gust of Wind switches your opponent's active Pokemon with a benched one. Here's a good look at the Kanto Pokédex, showing Dugtrio's entry from Pokemon Red and Green on the display. It lets you rearrange the top 5 cards of your deck. Switch has always been a staple card in the game, giving you an easy way to retreat into a new Pokemon. This first iteration features Kakuna and Magnemite swapping places. Pokemon games always contain several NPCs who will trade certain Pokemon with you. In Red and Blue, one of the first of these trades is for a Farfetch'd, and this is depicted in the Pokemon Trader card. It lets you swap a Pokemon in your hand for one in your deck. The Jungle expansion is one of the smallest sets ever and contains only one trainer card, so no cameos here. Here's Mr. Fuji from Fossil with Poliwag, Weedle, Pikachu, Lickitung, and Cubone by his side. This is fitting as he dedicates himself to looking after abandoned Pokemon in Lavender Town after distancing himself from his past job as a scientist on Cinnabar Island. The card itself is usually used to recover resources in damaged Pokemon, as it lets you choose a bench Pokemon and shuffle it and everything attached into your deck. Recycle depicts a beat-up Jigglypuff being lifted by a claw. It allows you to recover any card from your discard pile if you flip a heads. Although this mechanic wasn't based on any attack or item from the video games, a similar move was introduced in Gen 3 that lets you regain a held item that you had previously consumed during the battle. Moving on to Team Rocket, we have Digger, which is a Rocket's secret machine. These types of cards depict Team Rocket's evil devices and the Pokemon they're being used on. This Doduo here either fell into that hole or got pounded into the ground by that giant spike ball. I hope the other head's alright. The card makes you and your opponent take turns flipping coins until one of you gets tails and has to take 10 damage. Here's another Rocket secret machine, this time sedating a Snorlax by deploying flying robots over its head that break open eggs to release music notes? What, can you think of a better way? Next up is an utterly evil Gengar and Coughing with Imposter Professor Oak, who first appeared in the game back in base set. The first printing spelled it with an O, but the later prints spelled it with an E. Imposter Oak's revenge keeps the E spelling, but it changes back to O for the last time in Neo Destiny with Imposter Professor Oak's invention. Pretty sus. Fittingly, the effect works like a reverse Professor Oak, giving your opponent a new hand of only 4 cards. Here's the Rocket Trio themselves, with Meowth of course. Oddly, Jesse and James are wearing black outfits as opposed to their normal white ones. The only other instance I could find of this was in issue 108 of Nintendo Power, in an article previewing Pokemon's English debut. But Jesse and James have had their white designs since day 1 of the anime, which first aired in Japan months before either instance of these black designs, so I assume both of them are older drawings when they just had normal Rocket Grunt uniforms. The last card here is Challenge, with Machamp, Hitmonlee, Arbok, Snorlax, Weepinbell, and Muck ready to beat the crap out of you. The effect gives your opponent a choice between letting you draw 2 cards or letting both players fill up their entire benches with any number of basic Pokemon from their decks. Starting in Gym Heroes, we get a lot more cameos, mostly from Kanto gym leaders and their Pokemon. Brock's training method lets you search for one of Brock's Pokemon, like his Onix. Here's Erica next to a Vileplume pot with a plant resembling Bellsprout, Weepinbell, and Victreebel. Good Manners lets you search for a basic Pokemon after showing your opponent you have none in your hand. Erica's Perfume has a Gloom down here and lets you lure your opponent's basics from their hand onto their bench. Lieutenant Surge's Treaty is another card giving your opponent a choice, this time between letting you draw one card or each taking one prize card. And there's Electabuzz shaking hands. Secret Mission shows Lieutenant Surge looking through binoculars with his Raichu. Get this, the map in the background is actually German-occupied Poland during World War II. There's Warsaw above Raichu's ear, and Bialystok and Brest-Litovsk behind Lieutenant Surge. The card lets you peek at your opponent's hand and then draw as many cards as you're willing to discard from your hand. Misty's Duel is the first instance of rock, paper, scissors in the card game. You and your opponent play, and the winner gets a new hand of 5 cards. And there's Misty throwing scissors next to her Horsey. In most countries, the standard is to flip a coin or roll dice at the start of a match to determine who goes first. But in Japan, the convention is to play rock, paper, scissors. Looks like Misty's choosing rock in this one though. This is a super aggressive draw card letting you take the top 7 cards of your deck and discard all but 2 of them. Misty's probably mad at her Psyduck for being a massive headache as usual. Sabrina's ESP features Clefairy, Oddish, Pikachu, and Poliwhirl dolls suspended around her. The card attaches to one of Sabrina's Pokemon and lets you re-flip all the coins used in its attack. The Rocket's training gym shows a guard outside a metal door with a fighting Scyther inside. It raises the retreat cost of each player's Pokemon by 1. Blaine's Quiz number 1, oh boy. In the Gen 1 Pokemon games, Blaine's Gym on Cinnabar Island has locked doors that only open if you either battle the nearby trainer or attempt a quiz on your Pokemon knowledge. This card takes that quiz concept but makes it way harder. Your opponent has to correctly guess the length of a Pokemon of your choice from your hand for a reward of drawing 2 cards. If they're wrong, which is usually the case, you get 2 cards. So it's basically a much more fun version of Bill. But wait, if you really know your stuff, you'll remember that Pokemon cards didn't have length, or weight, or any Pokédex data for years. It was dropped at the start of the E-Card series as part of their major redesign to accommodate these dot code strips and wouldn't return until Diamond and Pearl. And even then, some cards were still missing it. So how does this card work if there's no length to check? Well, if you owned a Nintendo e-reader, you could use it to scan the bottom of the card which contains the length data. Except that some of them don't contain the length data, and dot codes just stopped existing after EXT Magma vs Team Aqua, so instead you need a copy of a Pokemon game with that specific Pokemon in the Pokédex, or have a guidebook to reference or something. Oh, wait, an official ruling banned all of those methods from tournaments, and you simply aren't allowed to choose a card without its length explicitly printed on it. Anyways, there's silhouettes of Gyarados, Gengar, Vaporeon, Beedrill, Omastar, Victreebel, Krabby, and Electabuzz. Recall features a Slowbro who's either really happy or getting shocked. It lets your evolved Pokemon use any attack from its previous stages. Tickling Machine has a concerned Mr. Mime in the corner, and its effect is pretty crazy. If you get heads on a coin flip, your opponent has to put down all the cards in their hand and can't use them for an entire turn. But if you get tails, your turn ends immediately. Last is Trash Exchange, with a Zubat picking up a garbage bag with its tails. The effect shuffles your entire discard pile back into your deck before discarding an equal number of cards from the top. The final set in the original series is Gym Challenge, and we finally get some cameos outside of trainer cards. Koga's Kakuna has a Pokemon power letting you search for Koga's Beedrill and evolve into it, and the artwork shows this, which is pretty cool. Koga's Tangela is braiding a Jinx's hair with its vines, and Sabrina's Ghastly has a Slowbro shadow on the wall. Blaine is back with more quizzes, and both involve your opponent guessing something about an unknown card you've picked from your hand. For Blaine's quiz number 2, they choose whether the card is a Pokemon, trainer, or energy. If they're right, they draw 2 cards. If they're wrong, you draw 2 cards. There's a silhouette of Onix on the board. Blaine's quiz number 3 makes your opponent guess the name of a Pokemon card based only on one of its attacks. If they get it wrong, you draw 3 cards instead of 2. This would make it better than the alternatives, but there's a high chance your opponent will guess right if they're familiar with the deck you're playing. We see Brock with a Geodude shirt confused out of his mind. Here's Brock with another Pokemon shirt, this time featuring Onix. Brock's protection keeps a Pokemon's energy cards from being removed by opponent's trainer cards or attacks. Erica's kindness shows her holding an Oddish umbrella for a wet Growlithe. The card heals 20 damage from every Pokemon in play, including your opponent's. Giovanni's Last Resort shows his Nidoking in the shadows behind him, and lets you completely heal one of his Pokemon at the cost of discarding your entire hand. Here's Sabrina using her insane psychic powers to fully levitate Misty and her Psyduck. The card uses the effect of another trainer card you pick from your opponent's discard pile. Koga's Ninja Trick features a Golbat and the Omet Manji symbol next to a Ditto. Because this symbol closely resembles a swastika, it was changed to this thing for overseas audiences and even featured Japanese prints as well. Speaking of censored cards, Misty's Tears needs no introduction. This time the artwork was completely replaced for the international release, and features a Squirtle instead of her Staryu. The effect lets you put 2 water energy from your deck into your hand if you discard another card first. Transparent Walls features a Weezing and blocks all damage done to your bench Pokemon for a turn. This is a reference to Fuchsia Gym, which contains a see-through maze you navigate to battle Koga. Warp Point shows an Oddish at both ends of a portal. It makes both players choose a bench Pokemon to switch with their active, which functions identically to the modern-day escape rope. And that's gonna do it for this video. I only covered the original series today since there's so many cards to go over, but I'll get through all of them eventually. So let me know what you thought and if you'd like to see a part 2 soon. And stay tuned for lots more Pokemon card history and trivia videos in the future.